What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kagash Podcast. We are back here today to take a look at AEW Dynamite, the Blood and Guts match from this past Wednesday, and to also take a look at a few other things outside of AEW, but of course in the wrestling world. The big news regarding WWE possibly taking Wrestlemania to London, and the discussion they had there, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to be going over that here as well. And then we do have the Dynamite ratings from this week's Blood and Guts episode, which I thought were pretty interesting. So I'm going to touch on that also. And just some, I don't know if controversy is the right word, or just some feedback and some discussions in the Twitterverse, right, between wrestling fans, if we want to put it lightly, regarding the chair shot that, of course, occurred in the Blood and Guts match as well, with Corey Graves referencing that and mentioning it, his opinion in a tweet. So we're going to talk about all that good stuff, but as always, guys, thank you so much for checking out the show. I truly appreciate it. If you are not following on Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter, of course, at Kickash Podcast _, which is the show's page. You can follow me personally at ASHMANNS. If you're not watching on YouTube, you can feel free to do that. You can like, subscribe, all that good stuff, whatever you feel inclined to do so. If you do want to comment, though, I think the comments that I've been getting are pretty cool, rather, and especially I've gotten a few here on Twitter, or I'm sorry, on YouTube, and then a few on Twitter as well. So thank you guys for that. That's pretty cool, just getting some feedback from you guys. So yeah, just feel free to send feedback wherever is easiest for you. I will do my best to get better at responding. I'm just weird when it comes to social media in general. If you don't know me personally, if you do, you definitely already know that. But yeah, we have a good amount of things to get into, so I'm not going to waste too much time. But just like to always say, thank you guys for checking me out, because there are like probably thousands of whatever this we consider content creators or whatever it is, review shows or just people talking about wrestling out there in the social media world and platform. So I appreciate you guys for keeping this in your rotation. But we're gonna start off with the AEW side of things, I think, and kind of knock that out, and then finish up with WWE and the WrestleMania news, because that shouldn't take too long. But I want to give at least a decent amount of time. Not going to go in depth regarding the entire show, because it's been a couple days now, and obviously you know what's happened. But just to touch on, of course, the Blood and Guts match, and one other thing from the Dynamite show that I thought was pretty interesting, and not even from the Dynamite show itself, I think from Battle of the Belts as well. So I want to touch on that. But regarding the Blood and Guts match in the Blood and Guts themed Dynamite, rather, um, before we get to the match itself, we did open up with MJF. He has rechristened the International Championship the American title, the American Championship. Um, so that's, of course, it's cool. You know what I mean? Like, it's this poor title, man, has gone through so many variations already. And at first when I saw that, I was like, really? But I get it, right? Going into All In the UK, now it's even better of a setup to have Osprey regain that championship, have him rechristen it back to the International Championship, especially since towards the end of, or at the end of the segment that they had on Dynamite, Osprey did retrieve the International Championship itself. During MJF's promo, he at one point threw the International Championship in the trash can, and that's when he debuted the American Championship. And I saw somewhere that AEW, whoever AEW employs to have their titles created, that company should just be indebted to him. And I think that's very accurate, because goodness gracious, I can only imagine the amount of money that they have spent on just title recreations, title creations, just because and side note here, go already. Back in the day, especially when we would get DVDs and you would get like a lot of like the side chapters or the special features and stuff like that. Um, you would see before it obviously before social media, you would see that some wrestlers would have their actual championship in like display cases. And it would be the actual championship that they won that night, or so they said. And I always believe them. Maybe I'm just gullible, but it would be like a full like glass display case with every original championship that they won. So I always wondered, like, okay, like if let's say I were to go in and win a championship for the first time, do I get to keep that exact title, and then the company makes a new title for me to carry around going around with after, or what exactly happens? Or if it's just like for a special occasion, I don't know. So I've always just been intrigued by that. But regardless, it will not regardless, but especially if that's the case, then Jesus, like I can only imagine the bill that AEW has. They have to have a budget specifically for championship titles if that's the case. But yeah, I like what they did. MJF is back to wearing his scarf, but it's a darker gray scarf. And for whatever reason, I was kind of bummed by that. I'm pretty sure I mentioned before I like that he ditched the scarf when he came back. I get now that he's reverted back to the bad guy MJF. He's going back specifically and I don't know what word, but just going back and stepping back into that old version of himself essentially. Not everything is exactly how he would have spoken or how he would have acted in the past. Maybe he's tweaked a few things, obviously with the scarf, but I just kind of dug that he didn't have a scarf, period, and I like that he had a leather jacket. So it's very interesting to see that he's going back to the suits, the scarf, and in my opinion, the majority of the same shtick that he had before. And again, nothing's wrong with that. And again, if you've listened to me prior, I was in the blog camp that he never should have turned face to begin with. I think that it was a little premature, and I think that he could have done something similar, or we could have had a similar story with him and Adam Cole and things like that. With him still being a bad guy, and we're not going to rehash that right now, especially since Adam Cole is still isn't even back yet. So we'll save that for a later day. But I don't know. Like I dug this segment, but I'm just really intrigued to see the evolution of MJF and to see how he takes his character going forward, or if he just stays with this variation of the previous version, just like I said, tweaking it a little bit and just kind of going from there. We also had the Chris Jericho versus Suzuki match for the FTW title. I I get that chops are his thing, right? Suzuki's thing, and especially with Jericho playing it up and things like that, but just way too much for me. I was just not a fan of this. And it was the predictable outcome with Jericho retaining. Not that it should have been anything different, but excuse me, to me that was just too much for me. We had Britt Baker facing off against Hikaru Shida. Of course, we had Britt Baker, Dr. Britt Baker winning here. But this was a good match. It was kind of there was a couple spots rather where things just didn't mesh as well as they most likely would have liked. But it did what it needed to do. It got the doctor back in the ring, right? It kind of got her back into the flow of things, got her a match on Dynamite under her belt, and just kind of got that little bit of jitters or rust or whatever it may be out of her system so she can get focused. And even though we still have I think it's what, August 25th, all in. So we still have a good amount of time, but it's just actually a weird feeling too, because it's one of those things where I feel like a lot of the feuds are kind of like ready to be like a week out from All In, or maybe 2 weeks out, and we still have what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do to continue a story like this one in particular between Mercedes Moné and Dr. Britt Baker. I hope we get more promo between them two, right? More promo time. Um, and just more substance, more story, because I think there's a lot that they can present, a lot that they can bring to the table, and a lot that they can really get out of it. So I hope that we get a continuation of that, and I think we will, especially with the debut of Camille for Mercedes Moné, right? Especially with her being her bodyguard, that's going to be a big deal, and I think that that's going to have something to do with the outcome at All In. If I were to make a early prediction, I would say Mercedes Moné is going to retain, and I think Camille would have something to do with that, which would continue on to Grand Slam. Now, if you want to take the title off for Mercedes at that point, I think it's too early to speak on that at this point. Just because I still want to see how the story plays out leading up between now, All In, and then after All In, and the outcome at All In obviously predicts a lot too, or determines a lot too, right? But yeah, I think this is going to be good. I think that getting Britt Baker back is something that the division needed, and again, it's just interesting that we have like almost two parallel worlds going on with the TBS Championship for the women's side and the actual AEW Women's Championship. So it's just very interesting. We did have Mariah May on the show as well. She faced Caitlin Alexis, I believe, the lady's name was. She did not get much, if any, offense in, but it's a squash match, it was what it was. It served its purpose, which, and I think it was good. I love how Mariah started the match out with that dropkick. I think that was just beautiful, that front dropkick, which is great. And then at the end, we got the returning Tony Storm coming back, and I think she said something to the effect of, "Are you ready to die? Because I'm willing to die," or something to Mariah May, as they both are being held back by security and opposing turnbuckles on the side of the ring. So that was fun, and we did. I'll just bring this up here because that's really the only thing I wanted to reference from Battle of the Belts. But we did get Tony Storm facing off against Taya Valkyrie in an eliminator match. Of course, Tony Storm won, but after the match, she did grab the mic. Here we go, and she kind of addressed what's going on, and to me, well, I'll hold on to it for a second. Let me go over what she said. But after the Storm Tony match, Tony Storm grabbed the mic and said, "The tramp is still the champ." So she called herself a tramp. She said, "The tramp is still the champ." She brought up Mariah May and said that she was perfect. Storm dropped to one knee and acted distraught while saying Mariah May was all of her dreams come to life, and said Mariah May made a mistake by not cutting her bloody head off. And yes, it's just something minor, but to me, I still would have saved that. I would have saved that and promoted that for this coming week's Dynamite rather. Yes, obviously we've already had the physical altercation, and I don't even think I would have had that. I think I would have had Mariah May fool the fans, right, by having them play Tony Storm's music, have her kind of get one up on everyone. Yes, it's predictable, but if you're going to do that, then okay, do it. And then have that lead into possibly Tony Storm like coming up on stage and trying to make her way, like pretty much having the same look and the same anger, but being obviously she wouldn't be in disguise. Whether you want to have Tony Storm's music hit or if you just want her to appear on stage or just come running from the back, whatever. I think it'd even be cool to have her music still hit, her run onto the stage, and then the second she gets to the center of the stage before she can make her way down the aisle, have the security, they're going to break them up anyway, have security prevent them from even hitting. So I think you could have possibly just spaced it out a little bit further since we do still have, I'm just going to call it about 4 weeks. So you still have some time to fill, right? So I think I would have just maybe done that. So then that way, like I said, this coming week on Dynamite, you can promote Tony Storm's official return. She's gonna address the situation with Mariah May, however you want to frame it, and then you can go from there and just kind of just delay everything, maybe one show, 1 week, whatever it is. So that's just kind of what I would have done to tweak it. But again, you have to bring it back, and especially with all this time, right, between again now and All In. So yeah, it again, nothing major there, but that's what I would have done. But I love this feud. This is my favorite feud going on right now for the women's side in AEW. I guess I don't know if that's not saying much or whatever, but and not to downplay anything else or it's I don't know, but I don't want that to sound weird, but I really enjoy this storyline. To me, it's the number 2 storyline in AEW. So I hope that's giving it the proper praise and no discredit or anything like that. But of course, moving on to the Blood and Guts match itself. Look, it was what it was, right? I'm not going to sit here and go over it. It was about 48 minutes, I believe. The match move by move. I do like the fact that, and I was completely, I don't even know I was spacing last week, but I couldn't remember, or I didn't remember that Hangman Page was in the match. So there's that, right? But I do like that every time him and Swerve had an opportunity to be in each other's presence, it was very intense. It was very physical, and I like that I believe it was Matt Hangman had taken Swerve outside of the cage and handcuffed him to the outside of the cage itself. And the production crew got a really good shot, I think, right as they were going into commercial break, or it was either right as they were going into commercial break or as Hangman was making his way into the cage finally, of the AEW World Championship that was laying on the floor, kind of like right to the left of Swerve, as Swerve was just had his arm, of course, still handcuffed to the cage, and he was just kind of like dangling there. It was just a really cool visual. But Matt Jackson had grabbed a mic and said something to the effect of, "Hangman, you better get your ass in here. If you don't, you're going to be fired." That was the whole point of assigning you to this match, essentially. So that was some people may roll their eyes at it. To me, it was fine. To me it was funny how quickly just Hangman was like, okay, yeah. Well, he didn't obviously say yeah, but he was like he like visually his body language was like, okay, yeah, like he just immediately just turned, walked up the stairs and got right into the cage. So that was funny. Which I get it, man. Like it's the economy is rough out there, man. You got to keep your job. You got to do what you got to do to keep that. And especially, I'm sure he's getting a nice paycheck. And last time we saw him, he had a Tesla, right? So it doesn't pay for itself. So and look, this match was fine. I Something about it was just I think it was maybe the story going into it for me just wasn't really hitting all that well. So the match just kind of was what I expected. So I wasn't like wowed. I will say Darby Allin had a couple fun moments, and it's crazy to me. And I'm pretty certain that this was his first one. Because I don't think he's been involved in any cage matches up until this point in AEW at least. So if that's the case, then obviously he wouldn't have been involved in any other blood and guts matches. So yeah, that was just kind of surprising to me when I sat there and was thinking about it. Darby Allin had a really cool spot where the beams holding the cages, because obviously it's just a square cage, right? And it has the roof on top of it. The one of the side like sturdier beams, Darby, and it had like a beam going across of it as well. He and just shout out to him too for that core strength and that upper body strength. He was on the side of the cage and just like kind of monkey barred himself over to pretty much the center of the ring where God, who was it? Was it Jack Perry? I think it was Jack Perry possibly laying on the table. There's a table or two set up in the ring. God, I'm just gonna say it was Jack Perry who was laying on top of the table and Darby hit a coffin drop from the top of the cage, just splat down onto him. And again, just little things like that, like Darby Allin just makes look cool, man. And I was one of those people that before AEW, I had never heard of Darby Allin. And when I first seen him, I was like, okay, it's just another one of those hardcore guys, right? But, it's fine. But just nothing really like, oh my God, like I got to see this guy. But I've really grown a lot of respect for him. You know what I mean? And just really just grown just an admiration for him and his style. And yeah, like he does like the crazy shit, but his shit kind of makes sense, you know what I mean? And it's just he has a different style to him and a different way of going about his matches. And that I'm attracted to, you know what I mean? And there's just something that draws me to his version of a quote hardcore match or a match like this. Whereas a different type of like quote hardcore wrestler, if they were involved, does, like it's just something I don't know. I can't really describe it. But that kind of stood out to me as well when I was watching this match. I was like, man, like I dig Darby, like I dig him. Yeah, so shout out to him, man. Like this dude, especially this year, he's been through a lot physically. So shout out to him. And I don't even know why, but I really dig that big furry pink coat that he wears coming out. um so yeah, that's why you guys come here, right? To listen to that random shit. But it was just Darby Allin really stood out to me in this match. And then obviously getting to or the ending of the main event rather, which again, once you saw what they were doing seemed kind of predictable. First we'll start with the the beginning part of it when Jack Perry was handcuffed to the inside of the cage. So if you're looking at the cage and looking at the ring, it was the ring on the right side and the cage that was set up on the right side of the ring on the wall, the right side of the wall rather. That's where they handcuffed Jack Perry to. So he was bleeding in the face, right? All that good stuff. Once they took in the way they kind of set it up too, you could see that they were doing something on the far left side that they obviously didn't want you to see on camera, so they changed the camera view quickly, which I get, right? Like there's a million things happening, and it's hard to keep up. But next thing you know, we see Darby Allin with a gas can and one of those long stick lighters. So clearly, like, oh fuck, here we go. He dumps the gasoline all over Jack Perry's head. Jack Perry's not wearing like any like long sleeve shirt or anything like that. And he had no shirt on for that matter. Just his normal wrestling attire. So, like, all right, like this shit can't happen, right? Like this shit can't happen. And not even gonna lie, like even knowing that couldn't happen, it still made me kind of nervous because at one point when Darby walked away back to the other side of the the whole like both ring setup, the whole war game setup itself. He flicked the lighter and it was a real lighter, you know, like it did have a little flame. And even that just made me nervous because it's so easy for once just like a hint of that heat ignites that gas and there could be any possible trails of the gas, like that shit will engulf quick and just fucking and just go straight to Jack's head, you know what I mean? So that shit still got me. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I knew he wasn't gonna light anything, but it still was like, what if, you know? So shout out to everyone involved in that and Jack Perry for having the balls to do that because it's still you know nothing's gonna happen, but still there's that point whatever percent chance that some freak accident could happen. So that was that. But the way it ended, of course, Darby Allin went over there, grabbed the microphone, and was like pretty much just demanding that he gets his TNT championship match at All In against Jack Perry, and that Jack Perry quits. um, so Jack Perry still said no. Jack Perry refused to quit. And I believe it was Mike Jackson again who came over and said that sure, like this enough is enough, and this is crazy. Like we've gone too far. Yes, Darby Allin has a TNT championship match against Jack Perry at All In, and they surrendered. They quit. So that was the end of the match, and to be honest with you, like it worked out great for Darby Allin, but like I don't, and yeah, I guess AEW Team AEW won and they defended their name, I guess, but I still don't know, like okay, like they won, like what difference does it make? I don't understand. I'm not gonna say I don't understand, but I don't get what stakes there were, if that makes sense, because I don't believe there were still. Again, Darby Allin was smart. Darby Allin got what he needed out of it. So props to that dude. Um he was playing long haul, but yeah, like I for the match itself, it was a good match, you know, for the blood and guts concept, it was fine. But other than that, like I really just don't I wish there was something on the line, you know, like if the elite win, the EVPs get booking power for the next month or whatever. Or if Team AEW wins, the elite have no more authority. You know, like yes, they'll still have the EVP titles, but they can only do like specific things, and it's just essentially just sign and just co-sign what Tony Khan authorizes. You know what I mean? Just some shit like that. Like I don't know, but it just seemed like it was just missing something to me. Um, I take a quick sip, and again, Canada Dry, man, if you're out there, I am over here with open and welcoming arms for that sponsorship because I spent way too much money on ginger ale. But yeah, so that was Dynamite this week. That was pretty much the bulk of everything. I do know that they had. I thought I had to put up here. Maybe I closed out. I think I did. I think the rating went back up to like 786,000 for this week, if I'm not mistaken. So that's good for them, especially with the craziness that's going on. If you are listening here in the US with our presidential election, with Joe Biden dropping out, I'm pretty sure that was right around the time the start of AEW was when President Joe Biden, started his speech or whatever he was giving. I was traveling at that time. But yeah, it's good for them. It's yes, that's not where they were last year. I think they were closer, like over the 800,000s or something, but it's still much better than where they've been for the past couple weeks. So if I was them, I would take it. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, the part of the match that had a lot of people on social media, Twitter specifically, talking was the chair shot to the head. So when Jack Perry was still handcuffed to the same side of the cage I was referring to earlier, right before the ending of the match itself, maybe a few minutes prior, Mark Briscoe threw a chair that Jack Perry had brought down with him that was spray painted scapegoat. It's kind of holding like this and just like tucked it forward like that and just wailed Jack Perry across the head with it. There are reports that it was shaved down to soften the blow. But to me, man, it's still not good. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna claim to know the inner workings of how things are made, wrestling weapon wise. You know what I mean? I'm just a fan, but visually, it's just to me, it's not the juice isn't worth the squeeze. It's not worth what you think you're getting out of it because to me, like it doesn't make that didn't make Jack Perry look any tougher to me or make Briscoe look any crazier, you know, as a character or anything like that. to me, it just kind of made me cringe, you know, just, and again, I'm the one who was like watching like back in the day, what was that match? Oh my god, it was Mike Awesome versus oh my god, it's escaping me. But oh my gosh, it was at ECW One Night Stand. Masato Tanaka, fucking brutal, right? Fucking brutal, and I would be a hypocrite, right? Because but again, not even when I was watching it back then, even back then I was cringing way worse, you know? And especially knowing now what we didn't truly know the full extent of back then, it's just unnecessary, you know, and especially with seeing how they took the ending of the match anyway, it just really had no correlation to it. Because he was still handcuffed, right? He still couldn't move regardless. So Corey Graves did take to social media though, and I believe it was right after it, right after the match aired or whatever, or not too long after. And he tweeted, he said, this is not meant to sound judgmental or incite us versus them, or question anybody's passion or talent or intentions. This is just coming from a guy whose career ended from a few too many accidental headshots. The art of the business is protecting ourselves from in each other. Trust me, the gaps in memory are not worth it. I promise. And I agree with him. You know, like especially thankfully Corey Graves is very multi talented, right? And he has found himself a most likely a longer career. Um, that's probably my dog coming in, so sorry about that. Or the cat, one or the other. Um, but the fact that Corey Graves is he found it troublesome enough to take to social media, and he has since I think deleted the tweet. But even just say that, you know, I think speaks volumes. And again, not that it was anything too crazy or too violent or anything like that, but just still kind of unnecessary in my opinion. Um, do I think like either of them should be like in super trouble or like, oh my god, AEW should be canceled or anything like that? Like, no, like of course not, right? Like, let's be real. Um, but do I think it was necessary? No, I don't. So there's that, you know. And when I saw it live, I was like, all right, people are probably gonna have something to say about that. And again, are people just saying something just to have something to say? I don't think so. I think it is very valid and very warranted at that point. So shout out to Corey Graves for having the balls to speak up, if nothing else. But finishing up at AEW here and then moving on to a couple things with WWE, we have Tubi, as reported by Fightful.com. Tubi is interested in a new wrestling program, which is pretty cool. I was just actually watching Tubi the other night and just putting him over, actually, with how impressed I was with their free platform. So shout out to them. But according to Fightful.com and Sean Ross Sapp specifically, so shout out to them, a television platform could be dipping its toes back into the wrestling world. Fightful Select Sean Ross Sapp has learned that Fox streaming platform Tubi has shown interest in investing in a wrestling product on its platform. Details are few and far between, but we're told that the discussions haven't been with an active company as opposed to wanting to try out something new from scratch, which is very interesting. Back in 2021, Tubi was poised to bring MLW onto the platform. However, a lawsuit ensued after WWE was accused of interfering in the deal. MLW had claimed that Stephanie McMahon had pressured a Tubi executive to deny MLW a Tuesday night time slot, and eventually the deal in totality. The lawsuit was later settled. And this is Fightful, we'll work to learn more in the situation. We've reached out to Tubi but haven't heard back. And they just reference that article specifically appeared first on their premium service Fightful Select. So if you're interested in that, check out Fightful.com and the Fightful Select section. But that would be interesting. You know, I remember Freddie Prinze Jr. I was listening to his podcast probably about a year ago now, and he was wanting to possibly start up his own wrestling promotion back when AEW was kind of coming to fruition. So kind of between that and the pandemic and just needing to get more funds kind of put a halt on things. But that could be exciting, you know, like if something like that could work out for, I don't know why that was the first one that I thought of when I first saw that article. But yeah, and again, I have no idea. I haven't really listened to him since. if he's still serious about it, if he's gone that far. But that could be interesting. That could be pretty fun to see. And the more opportunities for wrestling promotions to have distributing opportunities and streaming opportunities and services like that, the better. So shout out to them. So my dogs finally made their way in. Callie did not like the door closed. But wrapping up here, of course, the other big news floating around is regarding Bobby Lashley and MVP status with WWE. And we do have, this actually isn't the last name, but second to last. And we have a quote back from Paul Levesque, Triple H. After WWE COO or CCO, Chief Content Officer, Paul Levesque and WWE CEO President Nick Khan had a meeting with the mayor of London about the possibility of bringing WrestleMania to the city in the future, which we'll touch on here in a minute. Levesque was asked by local media if he could provide an update on the contract status of Bobby Lashley and MVP. And I'm reading this from WrestleView.com, so shout out to them as well. Levesque said the following as it relates to both Lashley and MVP. He says, quote, "No, just like any sport, any business, we sign talent contracts run out, we release talent. It's just part of the process, so it's an ongoing thing." We did have a tweet as well, though, from MVP, who took to social media on Wednesday night, commenting on his time with WWE by saying, quote, "What a ride." So there's been talks that Lashley and MVP want to reform the Hurt Business in AEW and Shelton Benjamin. So if that's the case, I get it. You know what I mean? I get why they would be more inclined to leave as well. But I am surprised that WWE isn't fighting a little bit harder to keep Lashley, just and MVP for that matter, just because they are a good talent and it just I mean, look at him, a good pairing specifically. Just with the mouthpiece, right? For Lashley, like Lashley has the size, everything, and MVP has the speaking down, right? So to me, if they do end up going outside of WWE, I would actually kind of like them to go back to TNA. And yes, like Bobby Lashley did that, and that's kind of where he like honed his character a little bit before going back to WWE. What was it? 6 years ago? 7 years ago now at this point. But I think that he could really go back and dominate. And I think AEW, yeah, he could, but the AEW just has so much going on right now as it is. So, and I just feel like eventually he would get lost in the shuffle. So I would love to see him go to TNA for a while and kind of test the waters there and just kind of just dominate and go from there. But I do want to bring up a article that I have here and kind of check it out with you guys regarding the hopes and the possibility rather for WWE going to London. So I'm gonna bring it up here. I was reading it earlier and I thought it was pretty cool. The first thing, and that's another reason why I wanted to show you guys here, is the title. Look at the title itself, the small little title. It just made me laugh. Like they chose the smallest championship, and I can say that because I have a championship title like that damn near identical that I got from WrestleMania 35. So it's just kind of funny to me that they are going to discuss all these big high dollar deals, right? And all this big business shit and just really put on a good front and a good display. And they bring the smallest championship title that they have. So yeah. But this article is obviously from BBC.com. Say what you want. Mayor The mayor still hopes to bring WrestleMania to London. This is of course a picture of Sadiq Khan, no relation, but there's just it's just fucking crazy how many Khans there are in wrestling now. But the right under the picture here for if you're not watching this, it's Sadiq Khan has held talks with WWE's chief content officer and former wrestling champion Paul Triple H Levesque. And the article goes on to say that London Mayor Sadiq Khan has further commented to his pledge, or I'm sorry, further committed to his pledge to try to bring WrestleMania to the capital after holding talks with World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE, Chief Content Officer Paul Triple H Levesque. Before his re-election in May, Mr. Khan posted on social media that he wanted to go even further in making London the sporting capital of the world. That included suggestions he would deliver the Super Bowl, the 2040 Olympics, and WWE's showpiece premium live event WrestleMania. After Mr. Khan's initial message on X, Mr. Levesque replied simply, "Let's talk." And it appears both sides took that seriously because boy, did they. Goes on to say, desperate to see WrestleMania. Those talks began at City Hall on Thursday afternoon when Mr. Levesque, a former WWE wrestler who was world champion on 14 occasions, sat down with the mayor. I'm really excited to have begun conversations about about bringing international WrestleMania to London, Mr. Khan told the PA news agency. It's just so funny saying Mr. Khan in relation to WWE. Which I get we've had Nick Khan, but again, there's just so many cons. He says, quote, I know there are many fans in London and across the UK and Europe who are desperate to see WrestleMania live, unquote. The previous 40 incarnations of WrestleMania have all taken place in North America, with 38 in the United States and 2 in Canada. And then we see a picture from this past year's WrestleMania with The Rock looking down on John Cena, who's laying on the wrestling mat. WWE has branched out in recent years and taken premium live events, the name of its larger monthly shows across the world. Cardiff and Glasgow have hosted Clash at the Castle events, while the Money in the Bank show took place at the O2 last year. Saudi Arabia, Costa Rica, and France have also staged shows, while Germany will host the Bash in Berlin in August, which is fucking crazy. Like, just look at that span in a year, 2 years, 3 years time frame. It's just amazing. WWE's main competition, wow, All Elite Wrestling, sold out Wembley Stadium last year and returns next month, with Mr. Levesque keen to bring WrestleMania over to the Atlantic too. Wow, so AEW got a shout out there. Good for them. True global brand. While in London, some of our greatest and best fans are here in London. I've been coming here for 30 years. They're always incredible, he told PA. So I'm guessing he still means Mr. Khan. He said WWE had a, quote, great history in the UK. WWE boasts a number of British and Irish stars on its current roster, including the likes of Becky Lynch, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, and Finn Balor. Mr. Levesque said, this is just an opportunity for the beginning in a different location and amazing fans. Oh, I was supposed to say that does not make any sense. So let me go back. Mr. Levesque said, quote, this is just an opportunity for being in a different location. Amazing fans. WWE is one of the true global brands, and I think you should look forward to seeing us all over the world. So that's not really that specific side. Whatever. That's kind of a weird comment he had. But they say next year's WrestleMania will take place in Las Vegas, meaning the earliest the self-styled showcase of the Immortals could be held in London is 2026. Do I see it happening that quick? I don't think so. 2026, maybe. If nothing, I see maybe another event happening in London prior to then, and then possibly the earliest for WrestleMania being 2027. And again, just because with how quickly and how extensive the WrestleMania plannings are, and seeing how early in advance they do it, and I think it was a Bruce Pritchard podcast I had listened to few years ago before he even came back to WWE. He said that literally WrestleMania plans are started before the current year's WrestleMania even is being held. So like January of, like, for instance, January of this year, even before this year's WrestleMania, they were already planning next year's WrestleMania, and they were already obviously, right? They were already finalizing the location for that. So my idea, and again, maybe this does fall into time frame wise with them, and again, it wouldn't be crazy, but if I had to put like a good amount of money on it, I would say maybe 2027 is the earliest for London. But with WWE, Nick Khan, and Triple H specifically going to London, like physically going over there and meeting with the mayor regarding this, and obviously the mayor being very gung-ho about making UK and making London the, what did he say, the sporting capital of the world? Was it the world or just the sporting capital? Let me see if I can find it again. But he's serious about it, and it's not like just a marketing or a campaigning pitch that he made. So to get reelected, he's following up on one of his promises. And I don't even know this fucking guy. He could be a piece of shit, but from what I see, like, he made a projection to his people that, hey, look, like, while I'm running, like, I want to bring all these sporting events here to London, and I'm serious about it. And if you reelect me, like, this is what's gonna happen. And that's what it looks like he's doing. If nothing else, his people can at least say that he tried, right? And he had a serious conversation with WWE brass and the top dogs, like the top of the top that you can get. Yeah, he said the sporting capital of the world is what he wants to make London. So this dude's serious about it. You know what I mean? So with that being said, maybe, the more I sit here and think about it, maybe it could be a possibility for 2026, but I would still say maybe 2027. Um, Now where they would go with 2026, I don't know. Maybe that's why they specifically like physically went over there to maybe expedite these things and really get the ball rolling. Because it's a logistics things too, right? Like with WrestleMania, especially being damn near a whole week event at this point, with access starting on Thursday. You have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It's damn near an event, a whole week event. Like damn near at one point, it wouldn't surprise me if this shit goes on 2 weeks or damn near close to 2 weeks. Which would be fucking insane. And I don't think that'll actually happen, but over or at least a full week. Um, just WrestleMania as a whole. But yeah, like it would be cool. And would I travel over there? Depending on the packages, yeah, man. I think that'd be fucking cool. Like I've obviously been wanting to go over there and just travel in general. And London has definitely been on my list. And I know a couple like two people out there. So I think it'd be really cool to see if I can meet up with them and just use it as an excuse to kind of knock two birds with one stone out, right? But yeah, with that being said, guys, I thought that was really interesting and the fact that they actually we're in physical talks. I think it's a very good sign, especially if you're in the UK and you're London based. I think that's a good sign for you guys over there, and you guys deserve it. You guys are kick-ass fans, and y'all really make the PLEs that much better. But with that being said, as always, guys, thank you so much for checking out my show here and for following the show on Twitter at @KickashPodcast_. You can follow me on Twitter at ASHMANNS, and you can watch on YouTube at @KickashPodcast_ as well. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching the show again, and stay safe out there and just enjoy some wrestling, guys. Have a good night.